Hey, what's up, guys? We're going to talk about how to sell your TCG cards. If you've been following along, we had a video about what causes the price of cards to go up and down. And now, let's say you have a card that you bought or you got some way through drafts or it was a gift or whatever, and now you want to sell the card because the price has gone up or because you no longer want the card, no longer need the card, or you need the money for whatever reason. There's various reasons why you would want to sell your cards. Regardless, there's a couple of things to consider before you sell your cards. One is the time that you are willing to spend to sell the cards and how long it would take to actually sell the cards. The second thing is the amount of effort you are willing to put into it. This goes along with time and effort. How much time are you willing to spend? How much effort are you willing to spend? Do you just want to sell it quickly? And if you do, it's probably, you might not make the most amount of money, but you don't have to do a lot of work. Or are you willing to put in that extra effort, which could return maybe a little bit more money? How many cards are you selling? How often are you selling? Are you just doing this once in a while when you get like a nice card that you want to sell and get some money off of? Or are you doing this regularly? And that also ties into, again, time and effort as well, because maybe if you want to do this more regularly, maybe you should put in a little more effort and time into it so that you can maximize your returns because, well, you're planning on doing this for the long run or for the future. And then finally, the last thing is you need to consider the fees and potential taxes that are implicated when you buy or sell cards. Now, none of this is financial advice. I am not a tax professional, so please consult a local tax professional regarding taxes, and then check the laws in your area and things like that, because that could affect a lot of things. All right, so moving on. So the first place you can sell your cards is to just your local community, your friends, or people that play LGS. Often LGSs and things like that, they don't allow transactions like between customers in their store, and that makes sense because they're also trying to make sales or sell cards, and if you're doing that, undercutting them or whatever, that's just not usually not allowed. But if you have a friends play group, or if you have like a meetup outside of an LGS or something like that, you can send a message out to your friends, maybe through Discord or whatever messaging place you guys use, and you say, hey, I have these cards for sale, let me know if anyone wants them, or something like that. And this route, selling to friends or the community, usually returns a little bit more because your friends or other community members, they're most likely going to be willing to pay cash for your cards, and therefore and they're just gonna hand you the cash and you give them the card. And so most likely you don't have to mail it to them and incur any shipping costs. You're not selling it through any platforms like eBay or TCG Player, and so there aren't any fees there. And it's cash, so you do what you will or what you want with the cash. Check with a local tax professional on implications of cash transactions or anything like that. So another place you can sell your cards is to like a local game store, an LGS, or any local vendors within your area. Usually the LGS or local vendors, they typically pay about 60% of either the market rate on TCG Player, or I think it's usually the TCG Player low price, 60% of that. So let's say a card is listed on TCG Player, the low, for about $10. So they typically would offer you somewhere around $6 for that card. And you might feel like, wow, that's a ripoff, or that's not worth it. Why would I sell a card that is worth $10 on the market, and why would I sell it for $6? Well, there's a couple of things to consider, right? So these stores and vendors, they have overhead, so they need to pay their employees if they have any. They need to pay for their rent, and any other transaction costs. And when they sell that card that they purchase from you, they have to pay fees. If they're selling it on eBay or TCG Player, they're gonna have to pay fees. If they're selling it on their own websites, there's credit card transaction fees or any Shopify fees. There's other fees that they have to pay. So even though they bought your card for $6 and it's going for $10 on the market, they're not going to be able to get $10 after all the fees and everything that they incur. So it's just something to consider. And often people who don't normally sell cards, they'll get a card and they'll feel like my card is worth whatever the market price is. But you have to consider that there are transaction costs, fees, and just time and effort. So sometimes maybe it's worth it to just sell your card quickly for cash for 60% of whatever it is, and you don't have to worry about anything, and you get your money right away. But of course, if you want a little bit more, we'll get into that and how to sell on the marketplaces. So you can sell to a vendor, and oftentimes vendors or local game stores, they will also sometimes offer you store credit. So if you don't want the cash, they can give you store credit, and they usually give you a little bit of a bonus on top of that. I don't know, let's say 10% or so. And so a place where I've done this, and this kind of through online, is Card Kingdom. If you've ever heard of Card Kingdom, one of the largest Magic card sales places online. And what's cool about Card Kingdom is that they have a pretty extensive buy list, and they'll buy certain cards at a reasonable price. And they offset that because the cards they sell are pretty expensive. But you can sell like commons. They'll buy commons and uncommons. Just go to their website, look through their buy list. You can see, and sometimes they'll pay for like this common or uncommon that nobody else will really buy, and let's say they're going to buy it for 13 cents or something like that. Okay, well, if you have 10 of them and you send it, if you live in Washington State, near the Seattle area, that's where Card Kingdom is. You can go there in person and trade it in. Or if you don't, you have to mail it to them, and it's kind of a process, and you have to incur the shipping fees and everything like that. So it depends on if it's worth it to you or not. But they'll give you like 13 cents for a common that you really won't be able to sell elsewhere. And even if you did sell that card on like eBay or TCG Player, you're not going to get that 13. You're not even going to get that amount because you have to pay for shipping, unless the buyer pays for the shipping, but you have to pay for fees. And on TCG Player, which we will get into, fees for smaller cards or smaller transactions are higher than fees for larger transactions. So a card that's like 13 cents, you're probably going to be paying 40-50% in fees. So you're going to make 6-7 cents on that card. Whereas if you trade it into your LGS or even Card Kingdom, you could maybe get 13 cents. Well, typically an LGS would not buy a card like that, so that's why the Card Kingdom route sometimes works for some of these cards. So look into that if that's what you're interested in. And another place you can sell cards is on like Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or some type of marketplace like that. And again, in those places, you arrange with the person whether you're going to meet in person to buy and sell the card, or you're going to mail it to them. And then so you have to factor in any cost of meeting them, such as driving there or cost of mailing it to them and things like that. But typically these are also cash transactions, and there aren't any transaction fees involved with selling on these marketplaces. But there's with this comes a little bit more of a risk because there's the potential of getting scammed. You don't know the person, things like that. So that's also something to consider. And then finally, it's TCG Player or eBay. eBay owns TCG Player or any other type of online marketplace such as eBay and TCG Player. So the thing about eBay and TCG Player, and in particular TCG Player, you have to level up your account in TCG Player. And also you kind of have to build up a user review feedback reputation on these sites, because if you're just a new seller maybe people are going to be more reluctant to buy from you because you don't have a history and they're worried about how legitimate your business is. And on TCG Player, you start at level 1, 2, 3, and 4, and when you're like level 1, you can only list like 10 or 50 cards, and then it slowly increases as you go up in the levels. And you also cannot change certain settings, like how much you want to charge for shipping and things like that on TCG Player. And then TCG Player, typically the way the fees are, and I don't have the exact cut breakdowns and everything like that, but if it's a smaller transaction, the fees are very, very high because they have like a base fee. It's like 50 cents or something. So if you're selling a card for 10 cents and then you're charging shipping, and I think the default shipping rate on TCG Player right now is like $1.23 or something like that. So your transaction is $1.33, right? And they're gonna take 50 cents off of that, plus another 15% or something like that, and you're gonna end up getting, I don't know, 60, 70 cents, but it costs 73 cents for a stamp here in the United States. And then you have to factor in the cost for the envelope. And then, you got to put it in like a sleeve. There's like a cost for the sleeve and all that stuff. So it's not really, if you're just selling one single for a couple of cents, it's not really worth it. If you're doing bulk, if you're selling more, then maybe that's where you can start making the money. My other advice, and there's a lot of advice out there on YouTube about how to sell on TCG Player and stuff like that. Let me know if you want me to go more in depth into how to sell on TCG Player and some tips and stuff like that. But the biggest tip I would say is do not price your cards too low on TCG Player. Don't price your cards at 1 penny or 10 cents. You got to have a base floor price. I would recommend at least 20 cents for any card you're selling on TCG Player, because what will happen is if you sell a card, if you're listing cards for 1 cent, somebody's gonna buy you out. They're gonna spend $1, and you're gonna have to, for 100 cards, and you're gonna have to mail out 100 cards, and you can't fit 100 cards in one plain white envelope. So you're gonna need to mail out multiple plain white envelopes or put it in a box, and to ship out a box is gonna cost you like $6, $7, $8, and that's only for $1. So if they're buying, if they spend $10, that's 1,000 cards. You're gonna spend so much. You're gonna lose so much money on a transaction if you price your cards too low on TCG Player. All right, so those are the different places you can sell your cards. Again, it's kind of depends on how much effort and time you want to put into it. If you're just very casual, you just want to sell your cards quickly or anything like that, I would just go to your local game store or any vendors in your area, and they'll give you usually 60% of whatever the market low in TCG Player is. Of course, they're not going to buy every single card, so they're only going to buy certain cards that they actually want, because they're only looking for cards that are actually going to sell. Otherwise, look to your friends or your community that play the game. You can check Facebook Marketplace. That's a little bit more effort, but it's really all depends on that. All right, I hope this was helpful. Good luck selling your cards out there. And let me know if you have any questions, anything you want me to clarify, or anything you want me to go into more in depth. All right, see you next time.